The twin suns of Veltara burned high in the sky. The air shimmered with heat, and the ground was dry and cracked, and dust blew across the training fields of the Veltrani warriors. Known across the galaxy for their strength, pride, and honor. Today, the warriors stood in a large circle, watching closely. In the center stood a tall human in desert armor, Sergeant Dax Hunter. His face was calm, eyes sharp, and muscles tensed beneath the armor. Across from him stood Commander Jira, the proud leader of the Veltrani, elite guard. Her armor was marked with silver, her shoulders broad, her posture fierce. She looked him up and down, unimpressed. "So," Jira said loudly, her voice echoing through the training ground, "this is the human warrior Earth has sent us." Crowd laughed, low, mocking, and confident. "He doesn't even carry a blade," another warrior said. "He looks more like a traitor than a fighter," one more added. But Dax didn't react. He just stood quietly, staring at ZHERA. ZHERA walked in circles around him, eyes full of challenge. "They say you fought in the fire trenches of Mars. They say you led missions against pirates in the ice belts. But I see no warrior. I see a..." Fake Dax finally spoke. His voice was steady, quiet, but powerful. "Are you here to talk? Or test me?" That silenced the crowd. Jira smiled, amused. "Oh, a challenge," she said. "It's very well, human. We Veltrani do not fear tests. But if you fail, you go back to Earth, in shame." "I accept, Dax," said simply. "Then we follow tradition," Jira said, raising her hand. "You will face the trial of the Dead Sands." Gasps moved through the Veltrani crowd. Even the younger warriors looked surprised. The Dead Sands were no ordinary training ground. They were dangerous, wild lands filled with broken machines from ancient wars, roaming attack drones, and burning heat. 3 days alone, Jera said. It's no team. No weapons except a small blade and a water pack. If you survive, we call. You warrior, if not, your people go home in silence. Dax didn't blink. When do I start? Jera's smile faded. She had expected fear, but Dax's eyes stayed calm. She turned and shouted, "Prepare him. The trial begins at dawn." That night, inside the human tent, Dax checked his gear. A small knife, a light water pack, 1 flare, and a simple locator beacon. That was all. His commanding officer, Captain Reyes, looked concerned. "Dax, are you sure? This isn't just a test, it's a death trap." "I know," Dax replied. "They want you to fail. I know that too." Reyes paused. "Then why accept it?" Dax looked out at the Veltrani camp. The warriors laughed and celebrated, drinking under the moonlight. "Because they'll never respect us until one of us earns it the hard way. Someone has to go first." Reyes sighed. "Just come back alive. You're too valuable to lose." Dax gave a small smile. "I don't plan on dying out there." At dawn, the gates to the Dead Sands opened. The Veltrani warriors lined up to watch Dax step forward. He wore no helmet, only light armor and a cloth around his head. He carried his small blade in a belt pouch and the water pack over one shoulder. Jera stood at the gate. She held a tablet in her hand. "This device will track your movements, but will not help you. No contact will be made. No rescue." Dax nodded. "Understood." "Good," she said. "Then go. Show us what a human warrior is made of." Dax stepped into the heat and sand without another word. The gates closed behind him with a loud metal bang. By afternoon, the heat was intense. Dax moved carefully. Covering his face and staying low, he avoided open areas, using shadows from broken machines and old wrecks to rest. He found signs of movement, deep tracks in the sand. Not animal, not human. Drones. Patrol bots left from the old Veltrani civil. War. Still active? Still dangerous? As night fell, the cold replaced the heat. The sands went quiet. Dax found a broken transport shell and climbed inside. It was hollow and rusted, but gave shelter. Suddenly he heard a hump faint, but growing louder. He turned and saw a red light moving fast through the dunes. A hunting drone. It scanned the area, seeking life signs. Dax held his breath. The drone hovered near the shell. Then, slowly, it moved on. But just before it left, a warning chirp sounded. It had detected Hedum. Dax moved fast. He rolled out the back of the shell, pulled out his blade, and ran toward a wrecked vehicle. The drone turned, followed, fired a pulse shot that hit the sand near him. Sparks flew. He dived behind cover. The drone closed in, scanning. Dax waited. He counted the seconds. Then, when the drone passed low, he jumped, grabbed its undercarriage, and stabbed the control panel. The drone sparked and shook. He pulled. Wires tore out its sensor core. The drone fell dead. He sat beside it, breathing hard. Sand blew around him, one night down. 2 more to go. Far away, inside the command tent, Jira watched the footage silently. The drone's destruction played again on screen. A junior officer beside her whispered, "He killed it." With just a blade, Jira narrowed her eyes. Begin full recording of his trial. "I want to see everything." And for the first time she felt curious. The second day in the dead sands began with a red sunrise. Heat returned quickly, and the sand shimmered under the twin suns. Sergeant Dax Hunter stood near the burned wreckage of the drone he had destroyed the night before. His armor was scratched, his face dusty, but his eyes were alert. He took a small sip from his water pack. Just enough to stay alive. He had to make it last. 2 days still remained. Far above, hidden in a camouflage drone, Commander Jira watched his every move. Drone streamed live footage back to the Veltrani camp. Jira sat silently in her command tent, eyes fixed on the screen. "Still alive," said one of her officers beside her. "Even sleeps with his weapon in his hand." Jira didn't answer. She was watching closely, like she had expected him to. Quit to send a signal asking for help. But he had done the opposite. He fought a hunting drone and won. Still, she told herself, surviving one night didn't make him a warrior. He had 2 more days. And the dead sands were not finished yet. Dax walked through the sands slowly. He was careful with every step. The desert was full of traps, old mines, broken machines, and other dangers buried under the surface. He had read the mission brief before coming. Many Veltrani warriors had died here during the last civil war. Suddenly, he spotted something. In the sand, it was shiny metal. He crouched low and brushed it with his hand. A warning symbol. Landmine. He backed away carefully, marking the spot with a broken metal pipe. Then he moved on. By mid-morning, he reached a broken structure, an old supply tower. It was tilted, half buried, but part of it still stood. He climbed inside, looking for shelter and maybe useful parts. Inside it was cooler. The walls gave him shade, and there were old crates. Most were empty, but in one, he found a small energy cell and a metal rod about the size of a club. It wasn't a gun, but in the right hands, it could be a weapon. He smiled a little. Better than nothing. He tied the rod to his belt and rested for a few minutes. He checked his water half. Gone now. 1.5 days to go. Suddenly, a soft clicking sound echoed from below. He froze. Then, with slow steps, he moved toward the hole in the floor. He peeked down and saw 2 glowing, red eyes in the dark. Another war droid. This one was larger, built like a small tank. With 4 legs and a damaged cannon on its back, it hadn't seen him yet. He thought for a moment, then quietly backed away. He grabbed an old panel from the floor and threw it out the side window. The noise made the droid react. Moved toward the sound, climbing the stairs. Dax waited just behind the doorway. As the droid stepped into the light, he raised the metal rod and smashed it into the joint between its head and body. The sparks flew. The droid turned to fire, but Dax moved quickly again, this time using the small blade to stab into a weak point in its chest panel. The droid twitched, gave a short electric cry, then collapsed. Dax breathed hard, then sat down. "That makes 2, he muttered. Back at the Veltrani base, the warriors watched the footage on a large screen. Many of them were silent now. The way Dax moved, the way, he thought, The way he fought didn't match what they expected from a human. "Commander," one warrior said, "he's fighting like us now, sometimes even smarter." Jira crossed her arms. She still looked serious, but deep inside, something had changed. She remembered what she had said on the first day. Fake warrior. Now, she wasn't so sure. That night, the desert became cold again. Wind howled between broken machines and wrecks. Dax set up camp inside the damaged supply tower. Placing metal pieces around to make warning sounds if anything approached, he ate a small energy bar, drank 2 sips of water, and tried to sleep, but he couldn't. Not for long, eh? Low growl woke him. He opened his eyes fast and grabbed his blade. From the shadows, something crawled forward. Not a drone, not a machine, a sand beast. The creature had 4 legs, dark brown, skin, and glowing yellow eyes. It was known to the Veltrani as a Kuruk fast, silent and deadly. The beast growled again and stepped closer. Dax didn't move. He waited until the Kuruk leapt. Then he rolled sideways, grabbed the metal rod, and swung hard. The blow hit the beast's side, but it recovered quickly. It came again, jaws open. This time Dax stabbed his blade deep into its shoulder. The beast howled, then turned and ran into the desert. Leaving a trail of blood, Dax stood still for a long moment, his breath sharp, heart racing. Then slowly he sat down. "You really don't like giving me a break, do you?" he whispered to the desert. At the same time, Jira stood watching alone in her tent. No one else was around. The screen showed Dax sitting under the stars, his blade still in hand, body shaking from cold and battle. She sighed. "This human is no fake," she said quietly. Then she added something softer. "He fights like one of us." As the stars moved slowly above the dead sands, Dax leaned back and stared at the sky. His face was tired, his body bruised, but his spirit remained strong. Only one more day, and he was still alive. The third morning in the dead sands came with silence. The wind had stopped, and the sky was gray. Sergeant Dax Hunter sat on a rock outside the broken supply tower, watching the horizon. His water pack was almost empty. His blade had dried Kuruk, blood on it. His hands were cracked from heat and cold, but his eyes stayed sharp. One more day, he thought. Just survive. He stood, stretched, and began walking east, toward the marked trial point. If he reached the final beacon before sundown, the trial would be complete. He would be recognized as a warrior. That was the deal. But fate had other plans. Far from the desert, in the peaceful Veltrani outpost, an alarm blared. Commander Jira rushed to the command tent. Red lights flashed across the control panels. Her officers looked tense. A young scout spoke first. "Unknown ships just dropped out of warp above the valley ridge. 5 in total. Not Alliance. Not flagged." Jira narrowed her eyes. "Separatists?" "Yes, Commander. It's the Red Fang. They're attacking our communication tower. Base Shield is holding 4 now." Jira's heart pounded. The Red Fang was a dangerous rebel group that had broken away from the Veltrani Council. They hated humans. They hated the Alliance. And they were well armed. She clenched her fists. "Send a call for backup." The officer looked up slowly. "We tried. Our long-range tower is already down." A cold silence followed. They were cut off. Out in the sands, Dax heard a soft beep from the small tracker tablet on his belt. It flashed a warning. "Base emergency. No signal." He stopped. That wasn't normal. The base always sent morning updates. Something was wrong. He pulled out a small signal receiver. Static. No contact. Dax looked at the sun. It was still morning. He had time to finish the trial. But something inside told him. The real test wasn't about survival anymore. It was about who he chose to be. He turned westback, toward the mountains. And the outpost began running. At the outpost, explosions shook the ground. Plasma fire lit up the sky. The Red Fang rebels had landed a ground team and were moving through the outer wall. Giara and her warriors fought back, holding the gate. But they were outnumbered. One officer shouted, "Commander, they've broken the north fence will be surrounded," Jira growled. "Hold the line. We fight until the last breath." She grabbed her spear and joined the front line. Hours later, just as the sun began to lower behind the ridge, the sound of battle echoed through the dead sands. Dax was close now. He moved fast, jumping over rocks and crawling under broken ship. Parts smoke rose in the sky ahead. Then, in the distance, he saw it. The outpost was under siege. Fires burned along the north side. Rebel fighters moved through the fields with heavy weapons. Dax crouched behind a hill and studied the battlefield. He spotted the weak point in their line of supply cart unguarded, holding energy cells and charges. He smiled. "Let's even the odds." The Red Fang fighters near the east side heard a sudden blast. One of their supply carts exploded, throwing fire and sand in all directions. Confused, they turned to look in. That's when Dax struck. He used smoke grenades and a sharp metal rod taken from the dead sands. He moved like a shadow, silent and fast. He knocked out 2 fighters with surprise attacks, then took their plasma rifles. Inside the outpost walls, Jira saw the new explosion. "What was that?" she asked. Another warrior answered. It's someone attacking the rebels from behind." Jira grabbed her scope and looked. Her eyes widened. "It's the human." Dax moved through the battlefield with speed and purpose. He fired carefully, only when he had a clear shot. He used cover, used shadows, used the chaos. One rebel leader tried to charge him with a blade. Dax ducked, rolled, and fired a stun shot. The man fell, unconscious. He reached the broken communication panel and dropped to new energy cells inside. System flickered. He pressed the button. Signal reconnected. In the command tent, a screen lit up. "Commander, the long-range tower is back online." Jira didn't wait. "Send distress to Orbit Command. Tell them we're under attack." The officer nodded and sent the call. Jira turned back to the battle. She saw Dax now, standing near the outer wall. Reloading his weapon, their eyes met. He gave a small nod, and she nodded back. 30 minutes later, Alliance dropships arrived from orbit. Bright blue lights flashed across the sky as heavy troopers landed. The rebels tried to escape, but it was too late. The outpost was saved. As the battlefield quieted, Jira walked through the smoke and dust. She found Dax sitting against a crate, holding his arm, which had a burn mark. "You disobeyed the trial," she said. He looked up at her. "Yeah, I guess I failed." She shook her head. "No, you passed something far greater." He raised an eyebrow. "What's that?" Jira stepped closer. Her voice was soft but full of pride. "You ran toward battle. Not for glory, not for victory, but to save your allies. That is the heart of a true warrior." She reached into her belt and pulled out a small metal badge, symbol of the Veltrani trial. She dropped it into his lap. "You earned it, Dax Hunter. You are no fake." The outpost was quiet again. Smoke still rose from broken walls, and pieces of damaged tech lay across the sand. Medics worked fast, helping the injured. Troops carried the wounded to safe tents. But the battle was over. The Red Fang rebels had retreated. Most were captured. A few had escaped into the hills. In the middle of it all sat Sergeant Dax Hunter, his left arm wrapped in a quick-heal bandage. Dust covered his face, and his armor had burn marks. "He looked tired but alive, Commander." Jara walked toward him, helmet under one arm. Her eyes were steady, serious, but not cold. Behind her, several Veltrani warriors followed. They had seen everything. Dax stood up slowly when she stopped in front of him. "You should be resting," she said. "Didn't want to miss anything." "Important," he replied with a small smile. She didn't smile back, but her voice was calm. "The outpost lives today. Because of you." Dax shrugged. "I didn't do it alone." She stepped closer. "You came back when you could have walked away. You broke the trial to save us. Some would say you failed. I say, you became one of us." Then, to his surprise, Gira bowed. Slow, deep, full of respect. The other Veltrani behind her followed. One by one, they lowered their heads. Dax blinked, unsure what to do. Then, awkwardly, he gave a small bow back. Later that evening, the warriors held a gathering around the central fire. Not a celebration. Veltrani did not party after battle, but a quiet moment of honor. Dax sat beside Jera and several senior warriors. They passed a shared drink made from root herbs. No alcohol, just heat and strength. "You fought better than some of our finest," said Captain Varn. A large Veltrani with red markings across his armor. "I had good training," Dax replied. Jera looked at him. "Will you stay here longer?" "The trial is over, but many want to learn from you now." Dax thought for a moment. "If I can help build something better between our people, I'll stay." Gura nodded. "Good, you've already started something." Looked across the camp. Young Veltrani watched Dax with interest now. Not with mockery, not with doubt, but with quiet respect. The next day, Dax began training drills with a mix of human and Veltrani soldiers. He taught them simple combat tricks, movement, cover positions, silent takedowns, things he learned over years of hard experience. At first, the Veltrani were hesitant. Their style was different, bold, face-to-face, strength over stealth. But as they watched Dax move, dodge, and strike with precision, they started to listen. Even Jera joined the training, matching him move for move. "You teach without ego," she said one morning after sparring. "That makes you dangerous." Dax grinned. "I just don't like wasting time." But peace didn't last long. 2 weeks later, a scout ship from orbit brought bad news. The Red Fang rebels had not retreated far. They had regrouped deep in the stone canyons to the west. And they had new weapons stolen, energy launchers and heavy armor suits. Worse, they were planning to strike a Veltrani civilian colony 2 days away. The colony had no shield and few guards. Jera called a war council at once. Maps lit the table. Officers spoke quickly. "They'll reach the colony in 48 hours. We don't have enough ships to stop them in space. They will destroy everything." Jera slammed her hand on the table. "No, not this time." She looked at Dax. "You have ideas? Use them." Dax nodded, leaned forward, and studied the map. He pointed at a narrow canyon near the rebel path. "If we block this point," he said, "we can trap them. One entrance, one exit. Too risky." One officer said. "Maybe," Dax replied. "But if we act fast and move at night, we can dig in before they get there." Jera looked at the map, then at him. "You're saying we take the fight to them?" "I'm saying," Dax said calmly, "we don't wait to be saved." That night, a strike team moved silently through the rocks. 10 human soldiers, 15 Veltrani warriors, and leading them Shera and Dax, side by side. The canyon was quiet. The wind whispered through the cliffs. They worked quickly, setting charges, building cover walls, placing energy mines. Every move was timed. Before dawn, they were ready. The trap was set. As the Red Fang approached, they laughed. They believed the colony would fall easily. They didn't know what waited inside the canyon. When the first group entered the pass, the charges exploded. Rocks fell, blocking the exit. Suddenly, from above and behind, fire came raining down. Veltrani, archers, human sharpshooters. Energy blasts lit up the narrow path. Dax led a ground team straight into the rebel line. He moved fast, firing from cover, calling targets, helping injured fighters. Jera fought beside him with her glowing spear, her battle cry echoing off the canyon walls. The Red Fang panicked. They were surrounded. Within 2 hours, the rebels surrendered or fell. The battle was over as the dust settled. Shera stood on a high rock and looked down at the battlefield. Her armor was scorched. Her hands were bloody, but her eyes were calm. Dax walked up beside her, also bruised and tired. She spoke quietly. "I used to believe only Veltrani could be true warriors." He looked at her. "And now," she turned to him. "Now I believe. Warriors come in many shapes, many worlds." She reached out her hand. Dax took it. And from that moment, the bond between human and Veltrani was no longer just words. It was earned. It was real. 3 suns had passed since the canyon battle. The valley was quiet now. The fires were out. The rebels were gone. Stolen weapons were taken by the Alliance, and their leaders were held for trial. For the first time in weeks, the Veltrani outpost felt peaceful. In the main hall, lights glowed softly along the walls. Flags of both Earth and Veltrera hung side by side. Warriors stood in rows, both humans and Veltrani wearing armor cleaned of dust and blood. In the center stood Sergeant Dax Hunter, his posture straight, his face calm. He wore his Earth combat gear, but today it had something new added to it, the Veltrani Iron Crest. A silver emblem pinned to his chest. It was not given lightly. Only a few warriors in Veltrani history had received it, never a human before. Beside Dax stood Commander Jira, dressed in ceremonial armor. She raised a long staff with a crystal tip. The hall fell silent. She looked at the crowd, then turned to Dax. "This human came to us as a stranger," she said clearly. "We called him weak, doubted his strength. I myself called him a fake warrior." She paused and looked straight at Dax. "But I was wrong." She pointed the staff toward the crowd. Dax Hunter survived the trial of the Dead Sands. He defeated machines, beasts, and darkness alone. Then, when he had no reason to return, he came back to save us. He helped defend our home. He helped lead us into battle. He bled with us. He fought beside us. He stood firm when many would run. Jira lowered the staff. She pulled a blade. From her side, short ceremonial sword with gold marks, by the old ways and the new laws. She said, "I name Dax Hunter a warrior of Veltrara." She held the blade out to him. Dax took it, bowing slightly. The warriors around them struck their chests once, the Veltrani sign of deep respect. Jira stepped back and spoke softly to him. "You have earned more than our crest. You have earned our trust." Dax nodded. "I didn't come here to be a hero. I just wanted to prove humans belong here." "You did more than that," Jira said. "You helped us see what a true warrior is." After the ceremony, Dax walked outside into the cool evening air. The stars above Veltara sparkled like dust. Scattered across the sky, sat on a stone near the training ground, looking up. Soon, Jera joined him. "No speeches this time?" she asked. He smiled a little. "I've had enough attention for one day." She sat beside him. "Do you plan to return to Earth soon?" Dax looked ahead. "I'm not sure. Earth is my home, but this place feels different now. It doesn't feel strange anymore." Jera nodded. "Because you earned your place here." "I didn't expect it," he said. "Honestly, when I came here, I just wanted to do my part. I didn't know I'd end up ... leading battles." "You didn't lead because of rank," she said. "Led because others followed you. That's the mark of someone real." There was a short silence. Then Jira asked, "What do humans call people like that? Warriors who lead others with heart?" Dax thought for a moment. "We call them soldiers, fighters, but the best ones. We just call them heroes." Jira looked at him. "And your people have many heroes." "Some," Dax said quietly, "but I don't want to be one. I just want to protect those who can't fight." Jira stood up slowly. "That's what makes you one." Over the next few days, Dax and Jira worked together to build something new, a joint training program between humans and Veltrani. It had never been done before. There were doubts at first, even whispers of resistance, but slowly, trust began to grow. Young warriors from both sides trained side by side. They learned from each other. Humans taught silent movement and fast tech skills. Veltrani taught strength, spirit, and ancient battle tactics. And Dax, he became the symbol of unity, not by command, but by action. One morning, a message came from Earth Command. A new mission was forming in a nearby system. A world once controlled by the Red Fang rebels was in danger again. They needed help from both humans and Veltrani. Jira brought the message to Dax. "You were right," she said. "Peace doesn't stay still." He read the message and nodded. "And we don't stay still either. You'll come with us? If I'm welcome?" Era gave a rare smile. You are more than welcome. You're needed. As they prepared for the next mission, Dax stood at the top of the watchtower, looking over the training fields. He saw humans and Veltrani sparring, sharing meals, laughing. He remembered the first time he walked into this camp. He had been alone, called weak, called fake. Now, he was something more. He was a warrior, and the galaxy was just beginning to see what humans and their allies could truly become. The sky above Veltara burned with colors as ships lifted off from the launch fields. New banners of the human Veltrani Defense Force waved proudly over the outpost. The wind carried voices, training commands, and footsteps. War was not over, but a new beginning had taken root in the center of the base. Sergeant Dax Hunter stood beside Commander Jira. Their armor was cleaned, weapons checked, and minds focused. A new mission had been approved. The Red Fang rebels had returned this time. On a distant mining planet called Drexus 9, where innocent Veltrani settlers were under threat, the message from orbit was clear. The rebels had taken hostages. A joint strike force was needed. For the first time ever, Veltrani and human soldiers would fight together as one unit. Dax looked across the small launch deck. His team was ready, 20 warriors in total, 10 humans, 10 Veltrani. All hand-picked. All trained for this moment. He saw familiar faces: Corporal Lin, his second-in-command, checking the team's gear. Veltrani scout Koro, adjusting her plasma bow. Even Captain Varn, once a loud critic of Dax, now stood quietly in armor beside him. Dax tightened the strap on his chest plate. "You nervous?" Jera asked, walking beside him. A little, Dax admitted. "But this time, I know I'm not alone." Jera gave a small nod. "Good, because the galaxy is watching." The journey to Drexus 9 was quiet. Ship floated through deep space, the stars distant and cold. Inside, the warriors sat calmly, checking weapons and reviewing maps. Dax stood near the display screen showing the layout of the mining colony. There were 6 structures, 1 large command tower, several underground tunnels. "The rebels are holding the hostages in the deep tunnels," he said. "We'll need to split into 2 squads. Jira takes the north route. I take the south." Jira nodded. "We move silent. No full attack until both squads are inside." "Exactly," Dax said. "We're not here to destroy. We're here to protect." Every warrior in the room nodded with respect. There were no more doubts about the human leading them. The drop onto Drexus 9 was fast. Winds howled. Sand blew in hard waves. The mining colony stood alone on the dusty plain, its lights flickering. X's squad moved quickly, using shadows and wreckage for cover. Jera's squad took the ridge path above. As Dax approached the outer wall, he signaled with 2 fingers. Lin moved left. Koro climbed up a broken pipe. Dax himself moved straight to the tunnel entrance. A rebel guard stood near the doorway, holding a blaster. Dax waited, then gave a quick hand sign. 2 warriors dropped silently from above, grabbed the guard and pulled him into the shadows. No sound. No shot. The team moved in. Inside the tunnels, the air was dry and full of dust. Dim lights flickered above as the squad moved silently. Footsteps were soft. Weapons ready. Dax checked his scanner. For life signs up ahead. Guard positions. He paused. At a corner, whispered into his mic. "Jira, what's your status?" Almost in position, her voice came through. "Rebels are gathered near the command room." Dax gave the signal. "Move fast. I'll take the lower chamber." The team split. Lin and Koro followed Dax into the lower section. As they moved deeper, a rebel patrol spotted them. "Intruders," someone shouted. The silence broke. Blasters fired. Lights flashed. Dax dove behind cover and returned fire. Koro shot an arrow that exploded into sparks, stunning to rebels. Lin threw a smoke pod. Dax moved through the smoke like a ghost, taking down guards leading the way. Every move was sharp. Every step was planned. They reached the hostage chamber. 30 Veltrani, civilians huddled together behind an energy barrier. A rebel commander stood in front of them, aiming his weapon. "You take one more step," the rebel growled, "and they all die." Dax didn't stop. The rebel's hand shook. I said, "Stay back." Dax spoke calmly. "Let them go. You've already lost." The rebel looked into his eyes, saw the calm, the control. Then something cracked inside him. He dropped his weapon. Koro rushed forward and shut down the barrier. Lin helped guide the civilians out. Jera, Dax said through the mic, "Hostages are safe." "Copy that," she replied. "North side clear, no more resistance." An hour later, the colony was secure, the civilians were safe. The Red Fang rebels were in custody. Not a single life was lost in the strike. Dax stood on the roof of the command tower. Looking out at the dusty horizon, Jera joined him again. "You did it," she said softly. "We did it," he corrected. She looked up at the sky. "We're Alliance." Ships circled above. "They'll talk about this mission for years." "Good," Dax said. "Let them talk. Let them see what humans and Veltrani can do together." When they returned to Veltara, the soldiers were welcomed like heroes. But there was no loud cheering, no gold medals, no grand parade. Instead, the Veltrani showed their respect with silence, unity, and the placing of a warrior's mark on Dax's armor, a second iron. Crest. One for the trial, one for the rescue. He was now known as Hunter of the Sands, a warrior not born of Veltra but shaped by its fire. That evening, Dax sat by the fire pit, where he had once been mocked. Now, young warriors gathered around him listening to his stories. They didn't laugh. They didn't doubt. They wanted to learn. Jira stood nearby, arms crossed, watching with pride. One of the youngest asked, "Commander Jira, is it true you once called him a fake warrior?" Jira smiled, just a little. "Yes, I did." One looked confused. "And now?" She turned her eyes to Dax. "Now I call him the warrior who showed us the truth."